Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel Network TechZone. My name is Sanjana. In this video, we will learn about configuration of static NAT. Static NAT refers to one-to-one translation, and here it only modifies the layer 3 header of OSI model. In static NAT, we can map one IP address to another IP address, which is bidirectional, without exposing the actual IP address of the host which is present in the higher security level. If you see the topology here, I have router 3 and router 4, and I am trying to access the internet with the help of the public IP address. So I am going to NAT R3 IP address to 192.168.29.100, which we can assume that this is one of the public IP address. And for the R4, I will NAT it to 29.101 in order to connect to the internet. And even if you're trying to do a telnet, and if I'm trying to see the users from the web router, I will not be able to see the actual IP address, but I will be able to see the public IP address. So we will learn about that. We will also try to ping and also try to do telnet and verify the output. So between this ASA firewall and for the outside, I have network 192.168.29.0, out of which 29.2 is connected to ASA on the outer interface, and 29.1 is my default gateway, that is my home router. Okay, and the web router is just, we can assume that there is another router which is present on the outside, which is 29.3. Okay, let's go ahead and configure the IP address first for all of these devices to start with. Okay, so we are on router 3, which is this router here. So enable config terminal, interface, Ethernet 0/0. Okay, IP address 10.1.1.3/24 for the subnet mask. Okay, no shut. Also, we need to have a default route, right, for in order to connect to the internet. So I will choose IP route .0.0.0 0.0.0.0, and the next IP I would take 10.1.1.4. Also, in order for me to have the communication, I will also use a routing protocol, and here I will be using RIP, okay, routing information protocol. So router RIP version 2 network, and here the directly connected network is just one network, which is 10.1.1.0, right? And no auto summary. No auto summary. Exit. I will also like to have telnet configured. So line VTY 0 to 4. Password Cisco. Transport input SS. Let's say all. Okay. Exit. We also need to have the enable password. So enable password, let's say hello. Okay. Exit. I'll just save this configuration. Okay, done. So let's move to router 4, and on router 4, let's begin with IP address configuration for the interface. So en configure terminal, interface Ethernet 0/0, IP address, and IP address is 10.1.1.2/24 for the subnet mask. No shut. Okay. And We also need to have default route to connect to the internet. So IP route 0.0.0.0.0, 0.0.0.0 and 10.1.1.4. Okay, and let's also configure router information protocol, that is RIP, for the neighbor router in order to communicate. So router RIP version 2, network here is 10.1.1.0. No auto summary, exit. Let's also configure telnet. So line VTY 024, password is Cisco, transport input all, exit, enable password, hello. Okay, exit and just save it. Let's rename this to be visible as R4. Configure terminal host name R4. Okay. Yes. Let's check the router 4 to see if that's renamed. Okay, we need to rename this for our understanding purpose. So configure terminal host name R3. Okay, exit. So done with router 3 and router 4. Let's move to ASA Firewall. For the ASA, configure terminal interface. So here we got gigabit Ethernet 0/1 port for the inside, and the IP address, let's give IP address is 10.1.1.4. That's what it's assigned on the screen, and 255.255.255.0, and name if inside, no shut, exit. We have one more interface on the outside, so I will choose interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0. IP address is 192.168.29.2/24 for the subnet mask. Name if outside, and no shut, exit. Also, do not forget to have the routing information protocol, that is, we have used RIP, and we will configure the RIP on this ASA firewall also. So router RIP, and here we have two directly connected networks. So one network is 10.1.1.0, and one more network I have is 192.168.29.0, right? So we'll say no auto summary and exit. Also, we have to configure default route. So I will say route outside, and it's 0 that, so I'll say 0 and 0 for the other side, and 192.168.29.1, which is my default gateway because I want to connect to the internet. So also for the traffic for the ICMP packets to come from the outside to inside, since it's going to be getting blocked with the ASA, I will also try to inspect the ICMP. So I'll use fixit protocol ICMP. Okay, and exit. Okay, so let's move to web router. Yes, so on web router, let's configure the IP address. So let's rename this first. So configure terminal host name, web router, okay. And interface, what interface we have? Ethernet 0/0 is the port, and IP address, let's give IP address 192.168.29.3 and /24 for the subnet mask. no shut. And let's also configure the RIP. So router RIP, no auto summary, version 2, network, and network I have here is 192.168.29.0, right? And I'll just say exit out of this, and we will also configure the IP route. So IP route is IP default route. So IP route is 0.0.0.0, 0.0.0.0, and the next hop here I have is 192.168.29.2, which is this IP address on this outside interface on the ASA firewall. Okay, so that's the configuration on the web router. Okay, and we also need to configure telnet. So how do I configure telnet? So it's very simple. That's the same thing that we use on the router 3 and router 4. So line VTY is 0 to 4, transport input all, and don't forget to have the password, and password is Cisco. Exit out of this and you say enable password, and that's what we have been using. That's hello, HELLO. Okay, so have we turned on this interface? Let's just check with the command show IP interface brief, and you can see the IP address are up, and you can see the status is turned up with the protocol up. Okay, so now we have configured the IP address, we configured telnet, we configured default route, we configured the RIP, which is routing information port protocol, on all of these 3 routers, and we even have inspected the CMP on the ASA firewall. And for the ASA firewall, we have even configured RIP and the default route to connect to the internet. Okay, so next step is let's verify if you're able to reach these hosts which are present on the outside. So I will try to reach web router from the router 3 and router 4. Let's see if that works. So router 3. Name password was hello. So ping. So I'm trying to ping this router on the web router. But before that, let's enable the debugging on the web router to see the packet flow. So I'll just say debug IP ICMP. Okay. And simultaneously, let's run the ping command, see what's the result. So the IP address on the web router is 192.168.29.3. And let's see. Okay, packets are reachable, but look what. Here you can see the reply is coming, but the reply is coming from 192.168.29.3, right? Okay. That's what you're getting the replies from this host. So here you can see the packets are reaching the web router. How about router 4? HELLO, that's enable password. So ping 192.168.29.3, right? Yeah. See, when you're seeing the replies, you will see the destination is 10.1.1.2, which is my actual IP address, but we don't want this to be happening, right? So, which is not really that secure. So we want to have the NAT translation so that the outside, when we are trying to debug the packets, we don't want to see the actual IP address of the routers, right? So let's try to ping this one more time from the router 3. Let's see the results. Yeah, we are again seeing 10.1.1.2 and 1.3, which is the actual IP address, but we don't want that to happen. So we will use NAT. At the same time, when you're trying to ping from the router to the internet, it will fail because we don't have NAT configured yet, right? So from the router 3, ping 8.8.8.8, you will see that there is no reply coming from the internet. You will see the success rate is 0%. And same thing with router 3 and router 4. Let's go to router 4 and see ping 8.8.8.8. You will see the packets are failing. It's not able to communicate to the internet. So what we will do, we'll go ahead and configure NAT on the ASA firewall. Let's also check the telnet from router 3. EN. Hello. Okay, we are on router 4. That's okay. Telnet web router 192.168.29.3. Password is Cisco. Enable password is hello. Let's move to router 3. On router 3, telnet 192.168.29.3. Password Cisco. Hello is the enable password. So I'm in line VTY connection to web router, and from the outside I'll use the command show users. This is enable password is hello, and I'll say show users. This is before NATing. So before NATing, if you use show users, you will still be seeing the actual IP address for even if you are telnetting. So you see 10.1 or 1.2, which is the actual IP of this router 4, right? And 1.3 is the actual IP of this R3. But this is what we don't want to happen. So when we will do a NAT, right? And when you use the same show users, you will see that this will be converted to this IP address, that is public IP address. Okay. And if you want to telnet from a web router to reach any of this router 3 or router 4, it will not work. But let's say telnet 10.1.1.3, it's just saying trying. Why it is not working? Because we have not enabled ACL on the ASA firewall. So let's enable the ACL on the ASA firewall. So configure terminal access list. I'll just say traffic. Okay. Traffic permit TCP. And what TCP I am permitting from? I want to permit the traffic from 192.168. Permit the host, right? Host 192.168. Access list, traffic, permit TCP, host 192.168.29.3. 3. So this is the host, right? And I want to permit this to any of those hosts which is present in my inside zone. So I'll just say any. And port number, we are allowing it for telnet, and for port number telnet, you can just say 23, or you can just give telnet command. And also we need to have access group name that we gave is traffic, right? Access group traffic in interface for the outside. Yeah. And just save this. Okay. Now you should be able to telnet from web router to router 4. So web router. Yeah. So web router, see here I'm using actual IP itself, but and because we still have not NATed it, right? So 10.1.1.2. Now you are able to get in. So password is Cisco. Enable password is hello. Okay. So you're accessing the R4 directly with the real IP address. But now let's configure NAT and see how to access using public IP address. So let's go to ASA Firewall and let's create object. Okay, I want to create an object for outside for each of this LAN routers. So let's create object first. So object network public R3. Okay, that means for R3 I'm creating a public host IP address and I'm naming it as a map IP address public R3, and I will map this public IP address which is 192.168.29.100. That's our task, right? We're mapping R3 to 129.100. Okay, so this is done. Let's also create object for the host, that is R3. So network LAN R3. Yeah, that's what the name I will give it for the object network. And then let's give the host name. What's the host name for the R3? That is 10.1.1.3. So host name 10.1.1.3. Okay. Now we will go ahead and do a NAT. So NAT inside, outside, okay, static. And I am mapping it to what? 29.100. That means nothing but your public R3. I'll just copy this and paste it. Okay, that's all. Exit. So far we have just NATed only R3. Okay, not for R4. Let's also NAT R4. I will first go to object network, public IP address for our R4. So public R4, and I'll say host. What's the mapped IP address? 29.101. So 192.168.29.101. And for the inside, network, object network, LAN R4. Host is what? 10. That's my real IP address for the R4. So 10.1.1.2. Yeah. And let's NAT. So NAT for inside, outside, static. And this is what my mapped IP address for the public, right? So public R4, which is, I want this R4 to pass on via public IP address, which is 29.101. So public R4. Okay, so NAT is configured now. I'll just save this. Done. Okay, let's now try to see if you can reach the web router. And let's see the debug is on. Let me just check. Let's select the debug on. Exit out of this R4. So debug IP ICMP. Let's move to router 3. Exit out of this. So ping what? 192.168.29.3, right? Okay. Okay, so this time you don't see the real IP address of the host present in the higher security level. You are seeing it is 29.100. 29.100 from R3. This is you're in R3 here. So from R3, you are reaching the web router via 192.168.29.100. Okay, let's move to router 4. Router 4, exit out, go back to router 4 console. So 192.168.29.3. Let's see. This time you should see 101. Yeah. Yes, there it is. So 101 is working. How about if you're trying to tell that? Let's see what it shows. So let's go to router 3. And you can say telnet 192.168.29.3, which is my IP address of web router. Cisco is the password. Enable hello. Okay. Let's also move to router 4. We are on router 4. Telnet 192.168.29.3. So we are establishing 2 connections via telnet. So Cisco enable password is HELLO. We have 2 connections. Let's verify that on the web router. Show users. This time you will not be seeing the real IP address that we saw before NATing. You will be seeing the public IP address. Let's see. It's just taking some while. Yeah. So you can see the location that is getting NATed is 192.168.29.100 for the router 3. Somebody has access from the router 3, and from router 4, the location is 29.101. Similarly, if I want to connect to router 4 via telnet, if you are using the real IP address, that will not work. I'm going to use for R4 10.1.1.2. You will just see this trying message, but it won't let you into telnet because you will have to use the public IP address when you're telnetting from outside. Let's just give it some time. In meanwhile, let's see if you're able to reach the internet from the router 3, from the inside host. So ping 8.8.8.8. You got access. That's working. And from router 4, exit. Ping 8.8.8.8. You got access to the internet. If you even want to reach ping 4.2.2.2, that will still work. That's because of the NAT that we used. Okay, so we got back now here. So on web router, if I want to access R3, then I have to use 192.168.29.100. So telnet 192.168.29.100. Yes, so Cisco is the password and enable password is HELLO. That got you into R3. Yes, that's working. And if I want to access telnet via web router to access R4, I will use telnet 29.101. Let's see. So go exit and then telnet 192.168.29.101. Password. So you are able to access R4 when you try to telnet 192.168.29.101. So far, what we have done is we were able to successfully configure static NAT and able to reach the internet. And also we were able to use the public IP address, that is one-to-one mapping via telnet. So I hope that this video has been informative to you all. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you for watching. See you in the next video.